Hey guys, how's it going? F8 Alpha here, and welcome back to the channel. Today we are taking a look at the Type 5, as it is a viewer's request that we have a look at the Type 5 and have a quick review and comparison with it. Now note that I do have two replays in store for you guys, and the second replay is quite amazing, as if you watch the amount of damage blocked by the Type 5, it goes well into the 8,000 damage blocked range. So just keep that in mind and keep your eyes on that damage blocked indicator at the bottom left of the screen there. But let's go ahead and get into the comparison here. We are going to be comparing the Type 5 to the E100 and to the Mouse, as I feel all three of these are the super heavies in the game. They are the most heavily armored tanks in the game. They are the slowest, or some of the slower tanks, I should say. Now, let's go ahead and look at the DPM. The Type 5 has a 2,195 DPM, the E100 has a 2,346 DPM, and the Mouse has the best DPM of 2,555 DPM. Now, one thing to take note of before we move forward here is that there are two guns, on the Type 5 that are available, and it's basically three guns, and I'll get into that right now. So you have the 140 millimeter, which has 249 millimeters of penetration. This is kind of like your standard AP firing gun. It's not a derp gun. It's not anything else. It's just kind of like your standard gun. It is 140 millimeter. It does do 600 damage per shot. That's the alpha damage on it, is 600. Now we got to look at the 150 millimeter on the Type 5, because that's kind of what this line is known for, starting from the tier 6, I believe. Moving forward, most people run the derp guns on these super heavy tanks. So let's go ahead and get into that. With the 150 millimeter, we have 75 millimeters of penetration and 3,441 DPM with the standard HE shells. Now, mind you, that damage is only achievable if you can penetrate your shots, because each shot does 1,100 damage. Now, if you look at the premium rounds, and this is where it gets a little bit interesting and it kind of muddies the water. The premium rounds do 4,380 DPM with the same penetration, 75, but they do 1,400 alpha damage per shot. So while these shells do cost more, they are premium shells, they are doing more damage. So Wargaming is somewhat walking that line of I don't want to say pay to win, but you're definitely paying to do more damage, because the reload time, the penetration, is the same as your standard HE rounds on the 150 millimeter. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at this tank. Now let's go ahead and move forward in our comparison here. The aim time of the Type 5 is 2.4. The aim time on the E100 is a 2.78. Now mind you, the E100 does have the 150 millimeter on it. The Mouse is running obviously the 128 millimeter, the only gun that you can run on it, and it has the best aim time of 2.01. Now we have to also look at the dispersion along with the aim time, because that tells a bit of a more colorful, fuller picture here. The dispersion on the Mouse is a 0.35, and the E100 and the Type 5 share a 0.38 dispersion. So those two are about the same in terms of accuracy, and the Mouse is obviously the best, the most accurate, and the quickest aiming. But we also need to take into account the depression. The Type 5 has the best depression of 10 degrees, and that is all the way around the tank, 360 degrees. Now, the E100 has a 7-degree gun depression, and the Mouse has an 8-degree gun depression. So when it comes to fighting over those hills or getting those shots down on your enemies, the Type 5 is going to do that just a little bit easier than the other two tanks in the comparison. And also the turret, the location of the turret is more forward in the tank compared to the Mouse, which has a rear mounted turret on it. So that's you can't really peek over hills with the mouse too well unless you want to take a bunch of shots. But let's move forward to the traverse, the turret traverse, and the hull traverse of the E100 and the Type 5 are exactly the same. The turret traverse is a 20.8 and the hull traverse is a 22.9. So those two are the best in terms of hull traverse and turret traverse. Let's go ahead and look at the mouse. The mouse is in the back of the pack. It is the worst when it comes to traverse. The turret has a 16.6 and the hull has a 15.6 degrees of traverse. So when it comes to being flanked, when it comes to being circled, the mouse is really going to struggle to re-engage the targets, as it is the slowest turning to engage those targets. But moving forward, let's look at the strong point of the Type 5, the armor. The Type 5 has 270 millimeters of hull armor on the front, 160 on the side, 150 on the rear. The turret is 280 millimeters thick, 210 millimeters on the side and 200 on the rear. So the Type 5 has the thickest armor as far as any heavy tank. The E100 has 200 millimeters of frontal hull armor. It has 120 on the sides and has 150 on the rear. The turret on the E100 is 250 millimeters thick on the front, 150 millimeters thick on the side and on the rear. Now let's look at the mouse. The mouse has 200 millimeters of frontal armor, 185 on the sides and 160 on the rear. And the turret has 260 millimeters on the front, 210 on the sides, and 210 at the rear. So you can see that the Type 5, when it comes to straight frontal thickness armor on the front of the tank, it is the thickest. Now let's look at the health pools here. The Type 5 has 2,900, where the E100 has 2,700, and the Moss has the best of 3,200. So the Type 5 kind of falls in the middle between the E100 and the mouse. And that is kind of the overview of the Type 5. It kind of falls in the middle of the E100 and the mouse. It's faster than the mouse, but it's not as fast as the E100. Its gun is, it does more damage. The derp gun does more damage than the 150 millimeter on the E100, where the 140 millimeter equipped on the Type 5 does more damage than the Moss's 128 millimeter. So it's this give and take between the Moss or the mouse and the E100. That's kind of where the Type 5 fits in, and it does have, once again, the thickest armor in the game as far as heavies go. So one thing to note additionally is it does have a 6-man crew. So if you're looking at training a crew up with this tank, just note that there are 2 loaders. You have a commander, a gunner, a driver, a radio man, and 2 loaders. So keep that in mind, that you will need to train 2 loaders with this tank. Now when fully loaded out with equipment of ventilation, gun rammer, and vertical stabilizers, you're looking at a 3,939 DPM, and that is with the standard HE shells. If you move to the premium HE shells, you're doing 5,000 DPM. 5,000 DPM. That is off the chart. Mind you, it is derp DPM, so obviously the majority of that you won't be landing unless you manage to penetrate your shots to do full damage like that. So just keep that in mind, that this thing has enormous potential to do tons of damage with the derp on it, the derp gun, 150 millimeter. My personal thoughts about the Type 5. Personally, I think this tank is fantastic. When it first came out, I grinded down this line as fast as I could, and I was more than likely one of the first on the battlefield with the Type 4 and the Type 5, as I spent a huge amount of free XP in order to get there, and I don't regret it. This tank is amazing. You can sit in front of targets and take shot after shot, and more likely they'll bounce, even heat rounds. And in my second replay, you will see that exact thing. So personally, I run the derp on it. I do switch from time to time between the 150 millimeter and the 140 millimeter. Like I said, the 150 millimeter has tremendous potential to do tons of damage. This tank is probably one of my top 7 tanks in this game, as far as how much I like it. Huge fan of the Type 5. I would highly recommend grinding down to get this tank. When you start getting up to tier 3, or no, excuse me, when you start grinding your way to tier 7 and higher, you will see the playstyle of this tank really come out. These slower, more heavily armored tanks, and you can choose between 2 guns in most cases and get a real feel for what the Type 5 is like. Now when you get to the Type 4, you're going to note that it is very slow, and the Type 5 does have a lot more mobility than the Type 4, and also the gun handling and fire rate is much better, as well as the armor thickness. So you're kind of gaining, going from tier 9 to tier 10, you're gaining quite a bit in the Type 5. I love this tank. I had tons of fun with this tank. I still play it. It is, like I said, one of my top 7 favorite tanks in World of Tanks. I highly recommend it. If you guys have any more viewers' requests on tanks that I should go ahead and review, or you'd like to see, go ahead and put in that comment section below. I do check my comments very often. So, with that said, guys, I am F8 Alpha, and I will catch you guys next time.
Yeah.